Let's go. All right, Chris, you ready to rock and roll?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right, Chris, so just quickly introduce yourself here so I know a little bit about you, who you are, what you do, some of your hobbies, and then we can just go from there.
Yeah, I'm the co-founder and CEO of a company called Wistia. Started in 2006. We provide video tools to help you with marketing, understanding how people are watching your videos, channels to present the videos on your site, tools to build an audience, all that kind of stuff. And never raised any venture capital. So we did it all with a little bit of angel money. And then a couple of years ago, we bought out our investors using $17.3 million in debt.
Wow.
The team is mostly in person. We're about 120 people, but maybe like 15 people or some degree of remote. And we're based in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And for fun, I have two little girls that are 4 and 2. And so my life is very full every morning and every night. It's total chaos in my house. And, you know, just I like traveling and taking them rock climbing and just trying to be the best dad I can be.
Yeah. So, Chris, before we hop into obviously the journey with you and Wistia and entrepreneurship, I like to just ask a random question on the show to get things kicked off on the right foot. So through, my research, looking at what, you've done with Wistia and just yourself in general, I saw from the Medium page that you have that you played video games, and in particular zombie video games that you liked. Why was it zombie video games that you liked, and why have you stopped playing them? Because I saw that you said you used to play video games.
Yeah.
So what's up with that?
Yeah, not particularly zombies, but I think, I was always a first-person shooter fan. And I was early in Counter-Strike and played a absolute ton in high school, just up crazy late every night playing. And I think I just loved it because, you could see yourself getting better. And I've always been obsessed with things that are like that. And it was sweet to just have time and put it into this thing and get really, 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 really good at something. And I feel the same way about growing a company. It's you can measure enough stuff that you can get really, really good at it. But rock climbing, which is one of the things I love to do, I find it fun because all the climbs are rated. So you can tell, are you getting better?
Yeah.
It's like a physical challenge. And it's also a puzzle. How do you get your weight in the right way and move things around to actually unlock the secret to getting up the wall. So I've always been attracted to things like that.
So Chris, just kind of because I'm curious, in rock climbing, how much of the perfection of, being a great rock climber is actually technique versus being just a rock climbing physique god in a way?
It's all technique, and it's funny because I used to think it was just strength, and it's obviously
that's what I'm thinking too.
Yeah, there's part of it that's strength. There's little holds that if you don't build up the muscles in your forearms, then your tendons can't fire and you cannot hold on to the holds, right? There is absolutely a strength element, but it's when you see people who come in who don't look like they're in very good shape and then they just wreck some hard thing. What is happening? It's all technique. It's body position. It's where your weight is. It's how you hold the holds. It's the order you grab them in. And sometimes it's just your confidence that you're going to put your foot on a tiny little thing. And if you push down on it, it's going to work. And if you don't, if you're timid, it won't work. And so I find it attractive for all of those reasons. And then it's always scored. And so you can tell there's a big difference between a V0 and a V1, a V1, a V2, a V3, a V4. It gets much harder. And then it's always feels really good because when you figure it out and you start to be able to move in a different way, you can tell you got better.
Yeah, true. So last question with this, do you do indoor or outdoor climbing?
Really all indoor.
Indoor. Nice.
Yeah.
All right, Chris. So just to move on here so that we can get through all the questions and what I had here. To just get things kicked off, when you started Wistia, I know that I read that it was, correct me if I'm wrong, but I read something that where you produced some video with another student at Brown University. And then that really opened you up to the market of how video is posted online. And then you saw that and you kind of approached your co-founder and said, this is something that I think is lacking, and then you went with it. I
Yeah.
don't know if that's
pretty close. Yeah,
pretty close.
Yeah. Yeah. I had I majored in film and video. So my resume was videos.
Yeah.
And back then you would put your resume like of videos on a DVD.
Hmm.
And that's how, if you're trying to get work, you'd send the DVD around, or it's called your
Dang.
reel. And that seems stupid to me. So I was always trying to put my stuff online. But pre 2005, the only way to do it was like, you had to know how to do the encoding yourself. There's no consistent format. It was not easy to get things in a Flash video. And so like you can encode it for QuickTime and people on Macs could see it and no one else could see it. You can code it into Real Player. Basically everyone could see it if they had Real Player, but it looked like shit. You could do it into Flash. You did a pirated version, do that. And so when I saw YouTube really, really early, my co-founder and I, who were really good friends, were paying attention to it. And the thing we realized was like, there'd been all these online communities before for film and they didn't take off. And yet all the people who were part of it could make content, right? Like every person was a filmmaker.
True.
So you'd think there'd be tons and tons of content, but there wasn't. And then we saw YouTube, all user generated stuff. Content looks like crap. Encoding's not very good. Tons of pirated content, but everyone was putting stuff on it. And this it was this unlock of the technology that suddenly meant that anyone could upload video and it would work. And today we take it for granted. Of course, that's how it works, but it didn't used to be that. So we saw that change and thought, this is going to change video on the web. How can we be involved in this? And we came across the opportunity, which turned into Wistia.
Yeah. So Chris, when you decided to pursue Wistia as an actual company, I noticed that you were in that 10-person home with your girlfriend, with your co-founder, building this, living as frugal as possible, right?
Yeah.
When that was the time, the present time was this time, going back, what did you expect from Wistia? Was it what you like where you're at now? Did you want it to be bigger? Was it like just a side project? Like what were your goals at that time for Wistia when you were in that stage of life?
Yeah. So when we started, and good research, good job. When we started, we honestly thought we were going to do it for 6 months, and then we would sell the company and we'd be rich, or we would just tell no one that we tried it. That was our approach. What were you guys doing? We're just hanging, just working at Starbucks. Like you just would have come up with something because we were so afraid of failure. And then what of course ended up happening is that we're failing very rapidly and trying lots of things that didn't work, but it was really fun to do. And we didn't realize how frugally we could live. Like that was the piece of the math that we got wrong. Like by living in a 10-person house, we shared food with everybody in the house.
Yeah.
And we were the only people who were home all day. So we were like eating all the food and nobody else. I mean, they'd have dinner at home a couple times a week, but they were like, they just got salaries and they were going out to dinner. We couldn't do that. So it meant that for us, the food was so cheap. It's like, I didn't plan on spending only $15 a week on food, but that's what I was spending because we were split sharing with so many people. And it just let us survive like way longer than we thought we would.
Yeah.
And then when we finally started to get some traction, our first customer spent like $400 a month, which was a quarter of our expenses, which was very exciting. And the dream at that moment was, let's just make 60 grand a year. If we could just make 60 grand, Brendan and I can each make 30 and we'll be able to survive. And that'll be awesome because this is so fun. So it was like, we had enormous aspirations and then very small. And so I definitely didn't expect we'd still be doing it. I did not expect, and I didn't expect that I'd be loving running a company. At all.
So Chris, if I can butt in here, when just so the timeline's right in my mind, when you got that client for $400 a month, was that when you were doing the portfolio type of goal with Wistia, or was that when you had that realization of you knowing that the portfolio wasn't working?
I know that was already. So we tried the portfolio for artists. We got people to use it. They didn't want to pay. We realized we're trying to help starving artists who had no money, so it wasn't going to work. We took the tech we had made and pivoted towards helping businesses. And the first problem we solved was helping people privately share video. So like instead of sending video inside of a company, or instead of putting things on FTP, or instead of doing a training in person, you could use our system and you could send videos only to people who had access via email. We could track it all. You could have comments, all that kind of stuff. And we were the only people doing that. So we were so early was like the only private video sharing thing. And that is such a niche, but by focusing on it, we were able to actually build something that no one else had built, and we were able to find traction.
Yeah. So Chris, when you got that client for $400 a month, how did that work out? Was that something you guys worked hard for? How did that process play out of you actually getting that
first customer? Yeah. So we'd spent the first year going to meetups and trying to connect with other entrepreneurs and thinking that we were going to like demo at these meetups or do something, but really just commiserating, honestly. Like mostly just talking to the people who were like, how's it going? It sucks. How's it going for you? It sucks, but it's fun too, right? Like, yeah. And that's basically what it was like. And we got known as being like the video guys. And so eventually after like 10 months, people started asking us questions like, can you help us with this video problem? Can you help us with that video problem? Like as they were building companies themselves. And we had a friend who worked at a medical device company, and he saw what we were doing and realized that we built this thing for filmmakers to privately share video. And he saw it. He's like, if we could use that, it would be way better for the company I'm at.
Yeah.
Like way better. So he brought us in, and we pitched without having a product because we had a portfolio website for artists, and they said they want a private way to share video, which is like kind of what we had built, but it was like really very different. And we're like, if we build this for you, will you pay us? And they said yes. And we just made up prices. It was like $100 a month was the light plan, $200 a month was the medium, and $400 a month was quote heavy. And just made it up on a piece of paper, and we slid it over, and the guy looked at it, who's a decision maker, and he's like, we'll take the best. We'll take the heavy plan. We're like, all right, cool. And so that was it. And then we built the first version of what Wistia was, this like private way to share video, in about 2 weeks. So we pulled out the stuff we had made before and made this private thing, and they were excited about it. And they kept using it. They were a customer for over 10 years.
Wow. So Chris, just so it's applicable here in this situation for younger people that want to or see themselves in that situation where they're going to have to build something and then now they have to sell it. Like it's not just a one-way road. It's a two-way road. How do you advise them to get that first client like you did and then execute and get more clients? What do you say to them after being what you've been through?
I would say it all comes down to being really close to the customer and actually understanding what problems they have. And your job as an entrepreneur is to try to decide the problems that people say they have, like how universal are these problems? And if I solve this problem, how defensible is it for me to solve this problem? Like, is it something that I'm going to just be the first to do it? And if it's big, there's going to be more competition. Is it something that's uniquely hard? Is it something that's uniquely valuable? And like, you're basically just trying to decide. And it's actually still true for us as we've grown. It's just like the problems that come up that we could solve, are these the right problems for us to go after?
Yeah.
And I think like one of the things I did not realize is that there's a lot of companies who will happily, and people, but I'm really just talking about B2B with this, like, cause it's kind of counterintuitive. They will happily be the first customer of a product. They will happily work with startup that's like 2 or 3 people. And they want to. And the reason is that they're looking for something that is brand new, and they're looking for something that's different, and they're looking for an advantage. And so if a startup is doing something, it's the first time it's ever been done. That's a 2-person company. So it's totally risky. Company might fail, of course. But as a company, you kind of weigh like, is it going to fail versus like, if it works and we're the first people to do it and we can get an advantage from it, how long will we have this sustained advantage? And it's just a calculus, and it depends on how much you're paying, whatever. But I didn't get that people wanted to work with a company that was 2 people. And so we spent a lot of our time trying to present ourselves to feel like a big, successful business. So we fake it till we can make it. And that didn't work. Like when we tried to do that, people were like, yeah, they can sniff it out. Like, I can tell you're not legit. And then when we were clear that we were tiny, that's when people were like, yeah. And sometimes billion-dollar companies who were like, yes, I want that thing.
Wow. So Chris, would you say to understand your customer, what kind of things would you do in a way? Is it finding like market research? Like what do you recommend that we would do if we're going to do this tomorrow? Like we have to pitch something, we have to find clients.
I think ideally you want to get yourself into the room with the customer. So that is the ideal state. It is to be sitting like next to them at the table or around a computer in front of a whiteboard.
So just being around them.
And it is a hard thing to do. But like the way you will do it is by telling people, I am trying to solve this very specific problem. I think it is relevant to you. If it is, let me know. And if it's not, that's like, let me know too. And it's funny, like this literally happened to me today, where someone who I don't know very well, but I know them, and they're like, hey, we're working on an idea for a new company. Can we pitch you and get your feedback? We've built nothing. And it worked out that I had like 30 minutes, and I said, sure, because I wanted to hear how they were thinking about it.
Yeah.
So I got to learn something because they were going to pitch me, and they got to get my feedback. And like, they just did it through hustle. And like, I think it's totally possible to do. You just got to set it up. And like, you also have to be okay with the fact that sometimes people are busy and they're not going to get back to you, and that's okay. But if you're totally clear, you'd be surprised how often like the right person will say like, yes, I will get on the phone with you, or I'll meet with you.
Huh. So Chris, to go back to kind of the beginnings, when you moved into that place with the 10 people apartment, were you at Brown? Were you done with Brown University?
I was a year out of school.
A year out of school then? Sick. Okay. So within that phase then Chris, I want to talk about when you were running that. Just another question that I wanted to ask you from my research is, you said that you were scared of failure, right? In the beginning, where, you didn't want to fail. And I also heard in another podcast, I don't know which one it was, but it basically brought up that you didn't have money most of the time for the company. Mm-hmm. So with that, how did you mitigate that fear in the beginning? I know from hearing that you probably were pretty nervous, pretty scared all the time to just make ends meet with this company and make sure everything works out successfully. So how did you mitigate the fear in the beginning?
The fear of failure?
Yeah.
It took me a little while to realize that like fear is usually about something new that you don't know, or it's about like something public that you're afraid that others will think like poorly of, right? Like, so like we're gonna do a big launch, everyone's gonna see it, and then our launch is not gonna work, and that's gonna suck. Yeah. Or I need to hire somebody, I've never hired anybody before, how am I gonna do it? Or I need to fire somebody, how am I gonna fire somebody, I've never done it. Like, and the fear is like you haven't done it before, or it's like some external thing. And with the external thing, you eventually realize if you fail, no one notices. It's just that simple. Sure. Like if you have a giant marketing thing and you fail, no one notices. That's the failure, is that no one paid attention, no one saw it. And if you look at the most successful companies on earth, like Amazon built like one of the worst phones it's ever been. And it doesn't matter at all. And they've had a million other failures. And in fact, like being able to sustain failure is one of the ways they've been able to innovate. And then on the other side, like at some point you just realize like, oh, if you're afraid of, I realize for myself, if I'm afraid of something, I have to run directly towards it. I have to throw all of my effort at the thing I am afraid of. And usually it's a sign I'm going to learn. And the more confident that you get that you can run at the things that you're afraid of, the less afraid you are.
Yeah, true. So Chris, to move on here with another story that I read about was when you flew to California for a client meeting that, eventually didn't work out, but it was a big check mark because you guys obviously, let me get my story right here.
You really did your research here.
I promise you, I did a lot of research.
You did. That's a good one.
Now I kind of lost my spot, but it was it opened the door. It said to other clients because you had that meeting, because it was a big meeting. So for that stage, obviously that is a turning point for your business, you and your co-founder, because now you get an easier meeting with bigger people. So going back to that origin of or going to California, how did that, tell us just the whole story of how that worked out, and if your luck, if you actually played your luck right and you were working towards that, was that all luck, or was it just straight up someone emailed you? Like, how did that all work out for you in that time?
So that's a good one. So basically I'm going to try to short version. How do I tell this story the right way? So we had somebody who was trying to help. They saw Wistia. They're like, this is awesome. And they're a talent agent actually in LA. And they're like, we think that what you can do, and this is when we were private video sharing, like you could take this to all the studios and you could get the studios to use you for their dailies. So the dailies are like the stuff that's shot every day. That's why it's called dailies. It's unedited. That often is sent to producers who are not on site. Okay.
Wow.
And it was through sheer luck that we met this talent agent. And they told us this big vision of all the stuff that's going to happen.
Did he find you just by reaching out? He found you guys?
No, they didn't reach out. It was like it's just one of those classic things. Like we were going to all these events and trying to meet people and just networking. And eventually made enough people that like a lot of our first hires we found through networking, got our first customer through it. And in this case, it was similar. It was like we met someone who knew someone who introduced us to this guy.
All right, yeah.
And so they're like, yeah, we think you should come to the studios and pitch them. We're like, all right. And they're like, we have a good connection with HBO. You should come pitch HBO. We're like, oh, wow. Holy, yeah, that's crazy. We want to go pitch. And this is like now, I'm going to say 2 months after we started focusing on private video sharing. So it's like incredibly fast after.
How many clients did you have at that time? Was it just that one or was it?
I think we probably had two. We got like one
at this time.
Each of the first ones. So 2 customers. And we're talking HBO. And we like set up HBO with the demo account and we put in some content and they got like sent from the talent agent over to HBO and HBO uploaded behind the scenes footage from like The Sopranos and like other stuff. Okay.
Holy.
It was insane. And we were really excited about it. We did a couple calls with HBO and they seemed interested. And then we're talking to the talent agent and they're like, so we've set up a meeting with HBO for next week, or no, maybe it was in 2 days. We've set up a meeting with HBO in 2 days. We're like, okay, cool. Like, what's the number? What's the call number? What's the plan? They're like, no, this one's in person. Like, it's getting serious. And we're like, okay, so you didn't talk to us about that. Like, how are we supposed to be there in person? They're like, no, you guys aren't going to be there. We're just going to go and like represent you at this meeting. And Brendan and I were like, that can't be. Like, if there's going to be a meeting with people trying to sell Wistia to HBO, we have to be there. Like, it's just crazy. So we have to go.
That is crazy.
Yeah. So we have basically incredibly small amount of money. Like, we've now gotten 2 customers. So we've like slowed down our burn quite a bit, but still very small amount of money.
Yeah.
We're like, we have to buy flights right now. So we like bought flights and flew out the next day. I called the assistant of the talent agent to figure out where the meeting was because they didn't want to tell me. And we got out there and we're like, we're here in LA. Like, where are we going? Eventually the talent agent like met up with us and we went over to HBO and met with their head of production who, when he walked into the room, he knew Wistia, said, I know Wistia. Like, we've been trying it. We think it's pretty cool. Like, oh my God, this is ridiculous.
What the?
Yeah. And I should also mention that we decided that we should wear suits because we thought, this is business.
Formal. Yeah.
And everyone else was like not wearing suits. Like, he was like, the guy was like in a leather bomber jacket and like everyone was like cool as hell. And we're just like these 2 24-year-old kids like wearing suits thinking that we're like doing business when in reality, like, it's like a clear sign we don't know what we're doing.
Yeah.
But the crazy thing was like, we put a deal in front of them. It was like an enormous deal. And they were really excited about doing it. And would have made us tons of money in the short term. But eventually, one of the things they told us was like, if we went forward, they would have to have servers that were on site. Like, they didn't just want it in the cloud. They wanted servers that were like in their network.
Their facility.
And we realized that if we were to do that, we'd have to move we knew we'd end up moving to LA. To support this. And then if we're in LA, it was likely we're just going to be doing like the studio world. And we were worried that it was actually not going to be that big of a market. And we'd end up building like enterprisey things. And so it was very, very hard to do. It was actually while we were raising our angel round and all our angel investors heard about HBO, but we walked away from the deal with them because we were too worried that we'd go like the wrong direction with the company.
Yeah. So Chris, kind of because that's such a big moment for you, after that, what was the pivot to? What was it, just all the same thing, the same goals that you had? Did nothing change, or were you like, all right, that happened, this is how it changed our mentality with the company? Like,
it's constant changing. I mean, constant changing and evolving. I mean, I think like, a plan is good until you start doing it. And then it's like, there's always problems with it. Right. And like, when we raised our angel round, we had this plan that we were going to sell to really big businesses, and it wouldn't be media companies, and they'd pay up front for the year and all this stuff. We built our model on this plan, and we raised money on this plan. And then we thought it would work because we made a plan. It's the first time we had a plan. And we expected that in 4 months we'd be profitable after hiring 2 more people, paying ourselves salaries for the first time, getting an office, spending money on marketing. Like, we're like, oh, 4 months in, like, yeah, look, the plan says we're going to be profitable. And it was nothing close. It was horrible. Like, we closed our first, after we closed the angel money, we couldn't close a customer for like 5 months. It was just horrific. And you throw the plan out and you realize it's wrong. And then eventually we realized we were too focused on big companies as actually small and medium-sized companies that wanted to be customers. And we were always focused on, back then, full service sales, but there's a lot of people who just wanted to sign up and didn't want to talk to anybody who wanted self-serve. So eventually we changed the business model. We changed how you could sign up. We went from just being private to adding, like, embedding in, and then the business like took off. And you know, it was like, at that point, we're 3.5 years into building the business. We had 30 customers. We got everyone by hand. The first credit card we ever got was like written down on a legal pad type of a deal. And it was like, whoa, just that's how it was. So like, then 2 months later, we had 200.
Jeez.
And it was clear, like, if this just continues as is, we are going to be able to build a sustainable business. Like, we'll be able to be profitable and scale.
So Chris, talk about the phase when you actually allowed your company to embed, because I read that was impactful for you and your sales. Companies wanted that, it sounded like. And so how did that change? Just talk about that phase and why was it easier to sell? Was it because that's actually something that you didn't have to sell? It's something they needed. Like, what was it that made it easier in that phase after launching that? Talk about that area.
Yeah. So before that, it was all private, secure video sharing. We had analytics because we built it for a customer who wanted to tell if they were doing what's called sales compliance training, and they had to know if their sales reps were watching videos. So we built the analytics for that, but everyone had it. And our customers started to say, we want these analytics for our videos on our website. And we're like, well, this is a secure platform. Like, we don't do that. And I'm like, but no, like, your tool, what you have, we want it, but in a different way. Like, we want these analytics, we want these tools on our website, and we're going to know if our marketing videos are working. And we're like, go use YouTube. And YouTube at that time had no analytics. And so they're like, we can't use YouTube because there's no analytics. And so we just did what they told us to do, basically. And it was a huge moment because we did that. And we'd been trying to figure out pricing. And at about 30 customers in, we didn't have like a set plan. We were close. So we added embedding, and we added set pricing plans, and we added the ability for you to like self-service buy. And that is when it was like the demand was there and we had no idea, basically. And our customers told us about the demand. So it did change from like people wanting something to, they were like, I need this to do my marketing better. And the business just took off.
So Chris, when you said you struggle with pricing, how did you actually figure out a price point? Like, for the people that are confused, if they're going to be in the situation, like, because it's a serious thing, it's how your business functions and it's how it stays alive. How would you recommend pricing in a way that people can replicate or is just right in general? How did you do it? And then what do you recommend and how?
Yeah. Okay. So, what we did, I would not recommend, at least in the early days. But the first thing I'll say on pricing is incredibly important. Yeah. And I think about it like this, like, if you have a product, like I'm sitting in front of a MacBook, right? If this MacBook suddenly cost $100, it would become the best computer of all time. Like, the quality that you get for $100.
True.
It costs about $1,000. So it's like, you get, it's like, seems like, quote, the right price for this product. And if it costs $10,000, it would probably be one of the worst products that had ever been created. So pricing is part of your product. It determines how people see value. The other thing I'll mention is if the price is too low, people often think you can't deliver on the value. Back to the $100 thing, they're like, nah, it can't be that good. And if it's $10,000, they sometimes think that they're getting something like a luxury item, like they're getting something they couldn't get otherwise. Like, oh, is there something it could do that I didn't know about? So pricing has a huge impact. I think the most important thing in the early days is, like, you want to look at complementary pricing. So what are the other things your customer is buying, and what is the level of value that those things are ascribed?
Mm.
And then how do you position against that? So if you're selling marketing tools, you're going to go look at all the other marketing companies. If you're selling tools to product managers, go figure out what tools product managers are paying for and how much they're paying.
So it's a lot of research. It's a lot of just analyzing the field.
It's a lot of research and analyzing the field. And like for an initial pricing, it's going to be something like that. You need something that people can respond to if you're trying to get your very, very first customers. And some people should think it's really expensive and some people should think it's really cheap, and that's like normal. Yeah. As you get bigger, you can do like much more rigorous pricing studies around like perceived value of your product, your category, the features in your product. There's a company called ProfitWell that we've used a few times that has helped us a lot. But that's, it can become much more of a science. But at first, a lot of it is like really just positioning against comparable products.
True.
Or competitive. If you're in a space where there is a lot of competition, unless you are very, very, very different, you're going to find that most of the people end up pricing similarly for better and for worse.
True. So Chris, to kind of move on to when you guys had that traction of you had the embed feature and then things just took off and you figured it out. Within that time, how did you, well, first of all, were you guys were in an office space? Was it a small office space? Your personal dilemmas, what was it like at this point in time before I answer or ask this question? Were you still at that 10-person home? Were you in that office?
When we were dealing with pricing and stuff?
Yeah. So when you had that client that told you that we need the analytics and then you did
Then, so we were no longer at home. We were in a small office.
Yeah.
That was probably like 400 square feet above a framing store in the suburbs. So we had a reverse commute because it was like the cheapest space we could find. And yeah, like the personal dilemmas were, it's 3 or 4 years into this, like not sure how big this thing is going to be. Aside from the people that lived in the house, like didn't have like a huge, like, my giant social network was like not as giant, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
we were working a ton, and it felt very fortunate to have so many friends who like lived in the house, because like you would come home from a day of work or be working at home, and like, you didn't have to do anything to have a social network.
Yeah, because
I just wasn't, it's a lot of questions that everyone around us is asking us, like, what am I going to be when I grow up? What am I going to be when I grow up?
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's a lot of like just general angst, getting ready for the big election with Obama. So there's a lot going on.
So Chris, now that we know that, when we know that the sales took off when you had that feature and you found out what customers wanted, how did things move after that point? Did you move into a bigger office space? How did you mitigate like the payroll for people you're hiring now that you have more sales? How did you mitigate the scale? What kind of things were you doing? Did you hire a manager to do all that for you guys? Did you hire like a CFO to handle your numbers once you got like 100 clients? Like, how did you manage that when things took off?
Well, one of the things we realized was I'd already watched a bunch of people I had met in those early days. I'd watched their startups fail, and we were 4 years in, and I'd see people do things for 2 or 3 years and have their thing like shut down, or them be like co-founder conflicts or not enjoy what they're doing or whatever. And when we were 4 years in, I was like, well, we're just getting traction, and it was really fun. And it was still basically, it'd been Brendan and I, and we'd hired 2 more people, and we'd just hired a 5th person. But we'd grown pretty slow and steady, but we really enjoyed it. And so we started to ask ourselves, even at that stage, like, is there something different about what we're doing that's allowing us to like persevere? Is there something different that's letting us take a long-term approach that is like actually allowed us to given us the time to figure this stuff out, given us the time to like be lucky a few times and take advantage of the luck? And so we started to think about culture like really, really early. And we were concerned that we could break everything with like the wrong hire. We were very, very concerned about that. So it was pretty like, we hired a 5th person and we waited like 6 months. And then we hired a 6th person and we waited 3 months. We hired a 7th and an 8th person. We waited a couple months. So we tried to make sure that the company felt like we were still really creative in how we were making decisions. We were really going above and beyond to take care of customers. We figured out that amazing support would allow people to pick us even if we didn't have all the features.
True.
You know, we would tell people like, oh, you want to go with a competitor? That's fine. We don't have those features, but we tell them really quickly, or we go above and beyond in how we were solving problems. And more, we saw people picking us, even though we didn't have all the stuff. Like, wow, they're picking us because of the support. So we figured this stuff out early, and then we were just very conscious that we did not want to screw it up. Yeah. And so we just kept like, and we actually still do it. We're like, we'll hire a bunch of people, and then we'll wait. And we don't wait as long as we used to, but we'll wait like a month or whatever. And does that team feel right? And if a team grows too much, too quickly, you can lose the magic of what lets the team work. And so we are always very, very aware of like growing in stages. And so we just started to do that. But yeah, the problems changed dramatically. It was not like, what product do I build? We started to figure out, we knew what product to build. It was like, how do we actually build an organization that can improve this product and create great customer support and have a great sales experience and take the right risks in marketing. And that is it's a very different type of challenge.
So Chris, from that answer, I want to understand, is this approach for people that are listening, this sounds like it's right, because your guys' company culture is like rated in one of the top 5 spots in the company or the country, is what I heard and read. It seems right to me, because culture really is everything with production and all your employees. But for any space, not just, the space that Wistia is in, is that to you seem like the correct thing to advise anyone to do, any young entrepreneur? Is that what you'd recommend? Or do you say you got to really understand your space, your people, your co-founder, your feelings, whatever it is, and then go from there? Or would you advise them, if you were an advisor on their board or whatever, to do exactly what you did? What do you say to them?
I would say, so like, culture is how you enact strategy. So culture is like what's promoted, what's rewarded, what's discouraged, who's fired, for like how they act, right? And you want your culture to be in line with the strategy that you're trying to go after. And for us, that it was been like, we've taken a very creative approach and focused on building, like being a product leader. So building really simple, really easy to use products, which is actually quite hard to do. Doing that over a long period of time, taking a long-term approach, and taking creative risks that we wouldn't be able to take otherwise. So everything is like set up for that, and our culture is all about encouraging that. The question is like, if you figure out what's working in your business, let's say it's like an enterprise strategy. So you figure out you can sell these big deals to big companies, but they're very complex. They need you to change your product slightly when they buy. They need a level of services that's really strong. You're going to have a culture that encourages people to go above and beyond in the service of customers, to quickly change the product and service of customers. All these things, it's actually quite different from a culture that's trying to be a product leader, where we want everyone to use exactly the same product. So we need the product to be the best at solving the problem that it's solving and have innovation in it. It's very different. And so the culture is going to be different with those two different strategies. And it's just being in touch with what that is. I think that people make the mistake often of not paying enough attention to culture early.
Yeah.
And they have someone who's really good. It's just a brilliant asshole. It's a classic mistake. It's like, you have someone who's super smart and they're super hard to work with, and you think it's fine when you're 4 or 5 people. And it might even be fine. But if the company scales to like 8 people, that asshole is going to turn everybody else off, or they're going to avoid working with them or whatever. And you actually have to make the call, like, I don't want the brilliant asshole at that moment, or I'm gonna have a company of brilliant assholes. That's gonna be who we are. Like, and I've heard people say, and I think it is not true, that you can't change your culture after like 10 people. That is not the case. You can absolutely change your culture, and your culture is actually constantly changing and evolving. It's a mix of everybody who's there and the values they use to make decisions, but you have to be proactive about doing it. And it is all born from the actions that people take, not what you say. I can say my culture is something, but if I don't actually like reward people or give recognition or do things that is in line with the culture, if the people who are living out the culture are not promoted, then I'm not promoting the right culture. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So what I'm getting is like, the culture is more of like a day, like you work on it every single day because it is ever changing. So it's a thing that you have to attend to every day to make sure that it's flourishing how you want optimally. Is that right?
Yes. And like, the culture is how you solve problems, because you can solve problems in a lot of different ways. So it's like, how do you solve the problems is the culture. how you need to solve problems changes as your strategy changes and as you get bigger. And so the question is like, I'm always thinking with 120 people, how do we get the right customer insights and the right feedback and the right product management and blah, 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 to make it feel like when it was 8 people, when it was 5 people,
True.
when we were super close to the customer and everyone knew what was going on. And now the learning is divided across a ton of folks. How do you make the organization still feel like it's solving problems for customers in a similar way, but you're actually doing totally different things to get the right insight and understand what to do and make the decision?
So Chris, kind of, because I want to understand more of this, and it seems like you've done it right, and obviously because your company is one of the top rated companies in culture, I want to ask this question of what are the tactics that you would say to people to pursue daily to make sure that that's something that they can accomplish? Is it, for me, I saw on your Twitter that you did like the sick video. If you're sick, then just stay home. And it was like this funny video that you just sent to Wistia and all the employees because probably just flu season, but I don't know. But it was interesting because, you know, people like really connect with that. And I think it really exposes, you know, I wouldn't say vulnerable, like being vulnerable, but it's just like being different in a way. And people like that. I don't know. But for you, is it stuff like that that goes above and beyond to make culture applicable in companies, no matter what it is? What kind of things do you recommend that we can do as just benchmarks every day to make sure a culture in a company is how it should be?
Yeah, I think, the sick video is a good example of, we have these very talented creative people. I'm like currently in our studio, which they relinquished to me for this.
Nice.
But like we have people who can make music and songs and lyric videos and sick graphics and all this stuff. And, you know, there's all these things we have to communicate internally. So we could just communicate them with like an email, which sometimes we do.
Yeah.
But in that case, it was like, well, we really don't think if you're sick that you should come into work. Or if you have a cold, I don't think you should come into the office. Like you can work remotely. We have a bunch of people who work remote. Like you should be able to work remotely and it's not worth the risk of getting other people sick. And it's not worth the pain of traveling for you. And it's okay to take a sick day. It's okay to not work. It's okay to be on vacation, like all those things. So it's like, how can we communicate this in a way that shows that we're taking it seriously, but is also like fun and interesting so people actually engage with it. In that case, we made that song, I made that video, and you could tell there was work that went into it. So it implies actually this is a serious issue because we expended real effort on it, but it's also really, really fun and ridiculous. And so it's like a serious thing can be fun and ridiculous. And if we're going to do that to communicate to people that they shouldn't come in if they're sick, what should you do when you're communicating with the customer?
Yeah.
And it's like, it just puts that question in there. And, you know, people make crazy videos for customers all the time here. And that's highly encouraged. And it's encouraged to go above and beyond to do that. And so it's just like, it's like the actions speak louder than the words, like always. True. And so that's just one of those examples of, you can tell people, give them rules all the time and give them unlimited vacation or whatever. If you don't actually take vacation, you give people unlimited vacation, no one's going to take vacation. Like you have to actually take it. You have to actually show people it's okay to do. And then they're actually, okay, I'll do it.
So Chris, our time is up here, unfortunately, but I just want to thank you for coming on the show. If you have any places you want us to go, where we can find you, anything you want to say to us, and then we'll say goodbye.
Yeah. I'm on Twitter at @CSavage. If you ever have any questions or want to chat, like hit me up there. You can check out what we're doing at Wistia at wistia.com. That's basically it.
Sweet. All right, guys. Savage on Twitter, and then wistia.com is where you can find Chris. Chris, thanks again for coming on the show, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me.